when you have a culture of launching, I think this adds some gamification, right? Like some motivation even internally in the company, because each milestone is now being celebrated. Knowing who you're targeting is the most important thing, because you can get 2,000 plus likes and a bunch of comments, but if you're not closing the right leads, then it defeats the purpose of having a successful launch. But at that point, we were just glad that people were interested, because there was no Spur yet.
Welcome to Winning Wednesdays with Pear VC, where the early stage founder community gathers to learn real go-to-market tactics and level up their game. Each week, we share fast, tactical insights to help you win your first customers, close bigger deals, and grow smarter. Whether it's discovery fundamentals, upselling, partner selling, or gritty stories from founders who've been in your shoes, this is your midweek shot of momentum. Let's win together.
So welcome to Winning Wednesdays with Pear VC. I'm thrilled to have Sneha Kumar with us, who will walk us through all things launch strategies. Sneha is a dear friend and one of the founders I have the joy of getting to work really closely with. She's the founder and CEO of Spur, an AI-powered QA platform helping e-commerce brands and consumer companies build robust quality programs. After raising a seed round earlier this year, backed by Pear, first round, and Combinator, Spur now works with major brands including LivingSpaces, Nextdoor, and Curology. Sneha is a former professional squash player and national athlete, and really a badass all around. She now channels that competitive drive into leading all aspects of sales, go-to-market, and marketing at Spur. And again, seeing her firsthand, she is just one of these founders to watch and keep an eye on. I think she's on this incredible trajectory. I am so excited, Sneha, for the people to hear your insights and wisdom. So without further ado, if you want to turn on your cameras, that'd be great, and just interact with Sneha as she shares. We will also break for questions after she presents. Let's get started. Sneha, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you for such a nice introduction and for having me here. I feel so honored. I'm still, learning the ropes in go-to-market from you. So I'm, so honored to be here. And I think today's presentation is really just an actual, real life case study about what I learned from our fundraising launch and how we kind of structured it and gained a lot of ROI from it, which I didn't expect. And launches are, I would say, more recently, one of the biggest tools that you have in your toolkit for go-to-market, which people don't emphasize enough. And I think hopefully you'll kind of see the benefit of launches, both small and big ones, today. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, perfect. Okay, so today I'm really going to just be telling you why launches are extremely worth it from my perspective, from our business, and how you can evaluate whether that is or not for you guys. So before getting started, just to give you a quick background, I think Anna also sort of introed me. I was born and raised in Singapore. I came to college here in the US, and I actually spent the last decade as a professional squash player. So that was me in my past life, obviously a very different arena. But it's still the same. I feel like sports and startups, I see so many parallels, and really just channeled a lot of that energy and passion into my company now, Spur. So I'm currently the founder and CEO of Spur. We started the company last year, and have definitely crossed that 0 to 1 stage, and launches has been a big factor in that. So I'm going to really be sharing about that today. And a little bit on what we do, as Anna shared, we put testing on autopilot with the world's first AI QA engineer. And we are working very closely with e-commerce, retail, and B2C companies. And the narrowing of ICP is also going to be something that is relevant to a launch. So I will talk about that as well. And while I'm speaking, actually, please, if you have questions on specific parts, like I'm happy to just answer, while I'm presenting as well. So the first key takeaway, or actually the main takeaway here that I really want to say, is always be launching. So there isn't really yes, there is a time and place to plan around the launch, but I think today, be it if you're a B2C company or a B2B SaaS company, launches are a great way to drive pipeline, to drive brand awareness, hire really good talent. So yeah, always be launching, big launches and micro launches. So I'm going to just share the very first launch, or my experience with the first launch. So when I was still in college, just graduated, so that was last year, right before this is right after we incorporated the company, I just dropped a post on LinkedIn, just kind of saying, I've graduated Yale and starting this company. And this post, and I didn't expect this. I was actually in Singapore when I posted this. So I posted this around 12 a.m. in Singapore. Timed it. I was like, okay, Tuesday is at 12 p.m. ET, probably a good time. I woke up the next morning and the post had gone completely viral. And that was when I realized the power of launches, announcements, and kind of nicely curated posts. So pre-announcement, I had like 500 LinkedIn connections, not a major presence on LinkedIn at all. And zero inbound. Right after that post, we didn't have a product yet. No landing page, no website, just a book a demo URL to my calendar. I had 40 plus demos booked, and the post had gone completely viral. And that was really the start of, our journey towards launching. And in terms of today, even till today, Anna, you probably know this, we haven't done any outbound, right? Like inbound has been such a strong funnel for us, and launches has been what's fueling that. And for some context, I am, building in the testing space. It is a very competitive space. So, your customers are probably getting outbound from all directions, like email, LinkedIn, everybody is kind of using it. And what we've found is the power of inbound, because when someone books a demo, someone sees your platform, they're really coming in warm. And I think that's like the biggest thing for us. And basically, like the whole goal of launching for us is really driving that inbound funnel for us. And I think this works really well for any B2B founders out there in the audience, because we're in the age of AI. There are, your customers are on LinkedIn most likely looking for new solutions, and they're going to more likely book a demo with the company organically than being reached out to via outbound. So I'll just leave you with that on this post. The other thing I would say is, of course, we got lucky. Like this post went completely viral. That might not happen each and every time, but I must say, LinkedIn and Twitter both have a first time boost. So like if you've never posted before and you do a big announcement for the very first time, both LinkedIn and Twitter, they do boost your post. So if you can plan around that first announcement, I think both of these platforms will boost your post.
Sneha, I'm going to jump in with two tactical questions on this. So one, I want to just clarify, when you posted this, the pre-announcement, the one viral post, it wasn't this one? Was it another one, or was it this one?
This was the one viral post.
Just want to clarify. Okay, perfect. And then, sorry, go ahead.
No. What was your other question?
The other question was about connections and how you handled those posts. Because if you started with 500 LinkedIn connections, I'm sure post the post, You probably got a lot of connection requests, and I wonder if you might just speak to how you've managed and handled connection requests.
Yeah, I would say after that post, I got 3,000 connection requests. Obviously, at the start, I would accept each and every connection request without really thinking about it. But then once you start filtering for profile, or actually, that's a really good time to connect with someone with the relevant title to you. Unfortunately, when I first posted this, we didn't have a clear sense of who our buyer was, what our ICP looked like, right? At that point, you're like, anybody with a website is going to need a testing solution. So that definitely, we weren't able to kind of maximize the virality, because we didn't have a clear sense of who that customer profile was. And I'll definitely share about like our most recent fundraising launch, how we did that differently, because knowing who you're targeting is the most important thing, because you can get 2,000 plus likes and a bunch of comments, but if you're not closing the right leads, then it defeats the purpose of having a successful launch. But at that point, we were just glad that people were interested, because there was no Spur yet. So, okay. So I think a big question that everybody here might be having is, when should you launch? And I think that beyond having, so the bigger trend here is micro launches versus gearing up for one big reveal, or having a big reveal followed up by micro launches. And I've actually picked out a bunch of companies that you've probably heard of. So for example, Reducto posted about new product announcements. That's a great opportunity to launch. Why? Because first, your ICP is like all the customers that are following you on LinkedIn that you've already connected with are going to kind of see this post and say, okay, like they've launched a new product. Let me go book a demo or a rebrand. Or of course, Cluely's super viral fundraising announcement. I'm sure people have seen that. But these are all great opportunities to launch. And you can create your own milestones. So even things like, I've seen people make a big deal out of case studies. If you close a really big customer, recorded a really nice case study video, and you can turn that into a launch, right? So not everything has to be a seed Series A announcement. You can make many different things into launches. Starting your own company is a launch, like what we did. That is a big launch. And all of this is kind of geared towards building your brand as a founder as well. So even doing everything, and I think launching in public, building in public is also a really big trend today. So any milestone that you have internally as a company, that is a great opportunity to launch. I've also seen people do revenue milestones as launches, right? So yeah. And the interesting thing is, I think I'll just come to the fourth point. When you have a culture of launching, I think this adds some gamification, right? Like some motivation even internally in the company, because each milestone is now being celebrated. And as founders, we obviously kind of you close one deal and then you move on to the next. And I think when you're actually thinking about launches, you're forced to actually celebrate those milestones and document them, which is also really helpful for the team morale, for your team members to kind of feel like, okay, there is momentum, there is a rhythm. And launches also hold you accountable that, okay, like we need to have made significant progress to launch a new product. Or if you set a date for a launch, you got to build the product and ship it by that date. So it automatically keeps that accountability. And then, of course, as I mentioned, pipeline and leads was the number one benefit for us. Being a B2B SaaS company selling in a very competitive space, pipeline and leads. The second thing is brand presence, organic growth. What this means is just having people know your company. So for example, in the testing space, there are a few companies, like let's say, I'm the head of QA at a company, and I'm tasked to go look for a new, AI testing is a new thing. Let me go look for solutions. They're not going to go take demos with all 30 companies in this space. They're going to go for 4 to 5. And you want to make sure that you are surfacing very quickly in their search results, be it a Perplexity search, be it a Google search, be it SEO, be it on LinkedIn. So launches are really, really helpful in that sense because it builds a lot of content around your company. And then the third one is hiring a stellar team. So having a good company presence definitely helps you get and convince people to join your company because they see that outwardly, everybody's talking about your company. There's a lot of hype around your company, and that definitely attracts talent and customers. Um, Okay. So I'm going to now just transition to talking about, a big launch. So this isn't a micro launch. This was our fundraising announcement and how we broke it down. So the very first thing you want to do for a bigger launch is establishing launch goals. So again, our biggest goal was getting pipeline and leads, but not just that, reaching the right kind of customers. So before our launch, even our website, all the messaging that we had was very generic. It wasn't targeting a specific ICP that we had in mind. And all the inbound that we were getting was very noisy. We weren't getting the kind of leads that we wanted. So our ICP was B2C companies and e-commerce brands. And we wanted to get inbound from this specific domain of customers. So we really focused all of the launch assets, strategy, copy, and all of the elements towards this ICP and trying to target that. And the second thing is when you launch, you do need to prioritize a platform. So for us, the biggest priority was LinkedIn because that's where our ICP was primarily, using that platform. Twitter could be more relevant if you're targeting developers, for example. So making a very conscious choice on which platform you want to prioritize is important. And then the third piece is you want to decide what are the elements for your launch. Since this is a bigger launch, you want to make sure that there is a bang. You want to make sure there is virality. So for us, the message we wanted to put across was Spur is a product that is now mature. We are working with name brand customers. We have delivered value, and we've raised a significant amount of funding. And we were trying to hit enterprises, and we wanted enterprises to come to us. And that's how we were framing. So case studies really helps with that, right? So if you have 2 to 3 large customers that you're working with, it's a great opportunity for them to say, like, can we do a case study? We're launching our fundraise. You'll be a big part of that. And that's kind of the framing that we gave our customers when we filmed these case studies. And we put a ton of effort into the actual filming of the case studies as well and putting that up on our website. So that was one big element. Second thing was rebranding. So we did need to do a rebrand to make sure that the website was targeting the right kind of customers, right? Because the moment you launch, the first thing a customer is going to do is go to your website. And if that website doesn't speak to them, they're not going to click on book a demo. So that was really, really important. And then the third thing is, of course, we had the fundraising announcement. And the last one was press. And I think press is may be useful, may not be useful. For us, we found it to be really, really useful. We had a Business Insider article to go alongside our launch. And it was relevant because a lot of our ICP did read Business Insider, but that might not be the case if you're selling to a very different ICP. So then I wouldn't necessarily prioritize the press side as much. And in terms of how to get press, one way is they come inbound to you. They see that the company is promising, the story is interesting, and they want to write about you. Or there are specific reporters that you can reach out to. And when you're reaching out to them, you want to be tactical. You want to tell them what's the angle. to sell the story, right? Because they're also trying to sell a story. Their incentive here is to write an interesting piece. For us, for this launch, fortunately, we got an inbound from Business Insider, but I think it's very possible if you can cultivate an interesting story about your company, about your journey, and present it to the journalist, there's a high chance that they'll pick your story up. So, but all of this has to happen like 6 to 7 weeks even before you plan this big launch, because they need time to interview you, to take pictures, to schedule the post, and you want to time everything together. So the press, the fundraising announcement, the case studies, the rebrand are all happening on that same day, on launch day. And then coming to pre-launch prep. So I think for us, timeline wise, this entire thing was about a 2 month effort. So what the pre-launch prep looks like is really getting the case studies, the rebrand, the pre-launch posts, warming up your LinkedIn, Twitter accounts, informing your investors. There's a lot of prep that goes in. And of course, number 5, which is post-launch, is really, really important. So after you launch, how do you actually leverage all of the inbound that you've gotten? How do you leverage the momentum that you've generated on all of your social platforms? So we'll be digging deeper into each of these. So first one is, why did we time our launch April 25th, right? So we closed our seed round actually in end of last year. So we launched 7 months. We announced our fundraise actually 7 months after. So the reason why was first, in October, we had a very steady, healthy inbound pipeline. But coming to April, we felt like, okay, the inbound pipeline was slowing down. We weren't getting the kind of leads that we wanted with our ICP. Second thing was the product was ready to scale, because we knew that if we did a launch, you need to have a product that's ready to serve all of the incoming demand. And third, you need to have a team that is also ready to support that demand. If not, you will drown, especially if your launch goes successfully, which if you do all of these things, there is a way to kind of manufacture that successful launch. But it's really important to be ready for the launch. Of course, I'm not saying, over prepare, but to a certain extent, if an enterprise customer comes to you, you should be ready to kind of onboard them, or at least have that, be ready for all of the demand that's going to come. So yeah, so just coming to our launch goals, right? As I said, our ICP was the managers of e-commerce, so e-commerce and QA, the directors of digital experience. These were the 2 titles that we were really targeting, and we were targeting e-commerce brands. And I think the fact that we had narrowed who we're trying to target for the launch really made a big difference, because for us, getting a demo booked from, I rather get one demo booked from an ICP versus 100 random demos booked. So having that clarity really, really helps, especially when you're planning around a big launch. And, of course, choosing the platform for us, that was LinkedIn, and really putting all of your brand assets, the rebrand, everything, putting it aligned to your launch goals and to your ICP. And then in terms of the preparation, as I said, the elements for our launch. So the first one was the website rebrand. We had a picture of booking a trip, right? So like the prime e-commerce B2C example smack on our website. We also had a launch video to go with our launch, which I think I think that's helpful, but I wouldn't say that's the most critical piece of the launch. I think even without a launch video, I would say we would have still had the same amount of ROI, but a launch video is still an asset that you can use even after your launch. You can put it up on your website. It's basically to tell the story of your brand and your company, but I wouldn't index too heavily on a launch video. In fact, the post that really went viral was the Business Insider article, which had a very, it had a good headline that caught a lot of eyeballs. So I think you want to see what you have to work with, and you don't need to have every single component. The third thing was the case study. So we really invested a lot of time in making sure that we had case studies with customers that later on could be reference calls. We could record a video with them, put snippets, all of that. It's a great opportunity for content. And the way we typically organize all of this was using a social calendar. So we just had a Notion page where we actually timed and planned out different types of posts that we wanted to, and this definitely keeps you accountable. I think we could have done a lot. We could have done a lot more. But I would say even pre-launch, having a consistent presence online definitely helps when you do make a big launch announcement. Okay, cool. So, all right, on launch day, that's also another, that's the most important day of all of this. And I think launch day is as important as pre-launch, or even more important, right? So the biggest thing here is coordination. You want all of your posts, the press article, your LinkedIn post, your Twitter posts, your friends posting about you, your investors posting about you, everything should happen at the same time, so that there is a flood in everybody's Twitter, LinkedIn feeds. Like, the goal of a successful launch is anybody going on to LinkedIn or Twitter in the tech space should be seeing and reading about your company. There should be content. And the way you can manufacture this is, of course, setting up a launch day brief. So we had a Spur launch. Actually, my launch date was April 17th. I think I messed that up on the previous slide. But you want to make a launch brief, which you can share with your entire network, your investors, your founder friends, everyone, that, okay, we're launching on this date at this time. You can send them a GCal invite. And in that launch brief, you can also include things like, what should you repost? What assets can you use to repost? Could you post a picture of us together? Or, this is the time to make those asks, right? Because it does pay off. And so similarly, we also reached out to all of our investors. We sent everybody a Google Calendar invite on the day of our launch. And the moment we launched, we sent the links to both the posts to everybody. So the first hour of your launch is also the most important period. You want to make sure that everybody is actually engaging with that post, liking, reposting, commenting, all of that. And I'm telling you, like, I was never someone that was, big on social media. I don't use Instagram. I don't use TikTok. So all of this was just part of the job. Like, even if this is not something that feels natural, if there is an ROI for you in launching, it's well worth doing it, and just treat it as it's, part of the day-to-day job of, launch is one of the elements of go-to-market. So yeah, like, a lot of this is formulaic. And that's kind of how I think about it as well. Any questions on this part?
I'll ask a quick one. Thank you for giving this talk. It's been great so far. A quick question related to announcing a fundraise. I'm curious if you have thoughts, particularly if you're looking at partnering with larger enterprise customers. Is there some risk that if the amount you've raised, particularly is like a pre-seed or a seed, like I know yours sounds like 4.5. Let's call it, if it's something that's less than 2 million, but somewhere in there. I guess my question is there a risk, or did you think about if it could potentially backfire of appearing as like, oh, we are this super early stage, like, have only raised like a certain amount of money, where then you potentially have enterprise customers who are like, oh, wait, they're kind of earlier on. Like, I'm not sure if this might be too early stage for me. I'm just curious if you thought that through at all, or any advice you have for especially like a pre-seed raise.
Yeah. Actually, that's a very valid question. For us, So I think you should also get a pulse of this when you're talking to your customers before you launch, like kind of getting a sense of how they're thinking about it. And in our conversations with the larger customers, it just felt like, at least in the testing space, they knew that this is something very different. Like there has been a significant shift in technology, and there are going to be this new wave of companies that are building testing tools in this new way. So there was that understanding that they were almost looking for companies that were earlier instead of the older companies that have been around for 5, 6 years, because they're not going to be offering the kind of tech that they were looking for. So almost saying that you were early stage, um, also indexing very heavily on the customers. So if you notice in our launch, we did mention, okay, we have Wander as a customer, North Atlantic Airways, like really signaling that you've already worked with these big customers and having case studies. Then they would be like, great, this company is funded, well funded. I mean, I think 2 million, 4 million, it still counts as a well funded company, and they've worked with big clients. So then that kind of like shifts that away. Definitely, if you're pre-seed and maybe don't have that type of customer under your belt, then it's a very valid thing to think about. Being like, I don't actually want to say that we've raised 500K, for example. So it's just getting a pulse on what that customer, how your customer is thinking about it. Not just one, but like a rough sense or gauge. So maybe like, yeah. But I would say never underestimate the power of a launch. So maybe even if it's a 500K announcement, there might be 2 to 3 enterprises that still are like, heck yeah, like I want to book a demo with this company and see what they've got. And you might not have ever been able to get in front of them, right? So if there aren't better options, launching is still a great way. And like, let's say even 2 to 3 enterprises don't book that demo. As long as you get 4 and you have a good product and you can build a story around it, go do a next launch on the case study with that big enterprise and get more. So it's almost just like getting the ball rolling wherever you are, right? Like it just gets the ball rolling, regardless of it's at 2 or 4. And I think you're just building up the launches. So don't think of a launch as the launch. There can be many launches. And if one doesn't go well, that's fine. Do a next one 2, 3 months later. No one is kind of tracking that. So I think that's also a big thing, right? Like don't be afraid that, oh, like if I launch and this doesn't succeed, what happens? Like it's still good to do it and people have gotten value out of it. So it's just like building that muscle.
Haley, I love this question so much because I think it's just super tactical. And I wanted to offer another example.
Yeah.
The mold of just being flexible and not anchoring around like a specific dollar value of raise or being like impressive enough. And one of the things I'm loving, Sneha, about your presentation is that you gave this example of like an early launch, like you just graduated, and then this more recent launch. And I think really remembering that a launch can have many different ways of being successful. And so in this post, for example, Kelly was a launch of her company Zella, but she doesn't talk at all about what she's raised. She just talks about what inspired it. So she's talks about losing her mom to ovarian cancer and how she's been working on this for the last 18 months. And she's sharing about her journey, and it's just so personal and also went viral. Lots of people, lots of engagement. And I think if you think about it, maybe this hasn't led to a lot of, I don't know what her goals were, signups or leads, but it's definitely gotten attention, And so I think there can be so many different ways to define success in a launch. And just wanted to share this, Haley, to your point on like if you don't have what you feel like is an impressive number raised to share, or you feel like you're still really early. There's so many different ways to just get people on the bandwagon, let them know what you're doing, get them aligned and inspired by what it is that you're working on, and that itself is an enormous success. So just thought to share, and sorry it took so long to get it up, but felt like it was perfect.
Yeah, it's really, really good example there.
And Sneha, I didn't mean to cut you off on like your presentation. I know we have
Oh, no, not at all. I think there was one more question in the chat as well on how did you find and narrow the ICP? this was more just, we obviously didn't start with a good ICP. It's just experimentation, like classic. It's just something that you have to be very aware of and kind of notice which customers are really sticking with your product and what is the commonalities between them, and then really digging deep into what is it about this type of customer. And once you can answer that question, you have a hypothesis that you can prove, then you have your ICP. So I think for us, very early on, we had Wander and LivingSpaces were two very successful customers of ours, and they were both B2C companies, and they had some similarities in the way they were structured. So that's kind of how we took two of our most successful customers and we're like, what's the commonality there? And let's find more of them. And that's kind of how we got closer and closer to the ICP. And it's still a hypothesis that we're validating. So you will always not be 100% sure. All right. Okay. Just on the launch ROI, like, was it all worth it? Just to share some of the, the ROI that we got. For us, from our announcement, we had 200 plus demos booked and still going, right? And this was April 17th, and my calendar is still very, very full. So, and the biggest thing here is getting very high quality inbound. So we got inbound from companies like Vodafone, Office Depot, Alo Yoga, like it was a dream. And we were getting like the right kind of people come booking these demos, right? It was executives, people high up, directors of engineering. So I can say for a fact, if you're, a company that looks like us, a launch will have a very high ROI for you, especially if you're looking to go, mid-market enterprise type of customers. It just builds some legitimacy that you know what you're talking about, you have it framed, and you have a plan. And the second really big benefit of launching was it forced us to think about our brand and like what is unique about the company. Like, I think sometimes you lose that when you're in build mode, and when you're launching and you have to constantly communicate to the world what your company is doing, what is unique. That really helped me in even just like sales conversations to articulate very clearly what is unique about Spur, what does it mean to be a customer of Spur, what are we what's our vision. And I think a launch really forces you to do that well. And then some concrete things like both my account on LinkedIn and Twitter and my co-founder both doubled in following. The company account grew by 5K followers. So, of course, those are all big benefits. And the biggest win is we still don't have to do any outbound. So we're very happy about that. And maybe soon, or we'll just plan another big launch. Yeah. Okay. Next. So some postmortem and learnings. So for us, I think in the very early slides, I said, make sure that you're ready to launch. And of course, when a launch goes very successfully, calendar was fully booked. So I didn't have time to really maximize that post-launch phase. I just went straight into sales calls and like kind of like dealing with all of the inbound that we were getting. But I think a better strategy would be if there was someone else on the team that we had that could ride the wave of the launch. So right after the launch, kind of backing that up with consistent posts, backing that up with micro launches, that would have been huge. And we have hired a GTM intern, and I think she is on this call, Bo, who's joining us next week. But I think like, having someone on the team that can really ride the wave off of successful launch is really important, and really planning around post-launch is key, because you've put all of this effort into making this big launch successful. So think of it as a rocket ship that you have to continue fueling. And then the second thing was lead qualification. So as I mentioned, the calendar was fully booked. There were still some noisy demo bookings from companies that were just really, frankly, not in our ICP, right? Like 5 to 10 people companies that we weren't really focused on. And in the beginning, we didn't really have very good lead qualification. So it's really important once you do that launch, once people start signing up, you cancel the meetings that are not in your ICP. Send them an email and like don't take those calls because you'll waste a lot of time. Because each call is like 30 minutes. It's draining your energy as well. So making sure that every meeting is a good meeting and is a high quality lead, even before you get on, is really important. And have a plan on how you're going to do that and what you're going to look for. And one concrete way you can do that is in your book a demo form, you can have custom logic. You can ask them for the size of the company. If they answer something like less than 10 employees, you can just send them to a page that says, sorry, you're not in our ICP, or, give them a nice reason and tell them that they can contact you by email or something. But that's one way of doing it. But I remember I canceled a lot of demos. And that's fine. And that's, I felt like a bad person for doing it, but you're not. Like, this is just not this is not the person you're selling to. So that's totally fine. Okay. And this is the last takeaway, which is drop the ego. So what I mean by this is, don't worry again if your launch is going to be successful or not, what exactly I should post. I think you don't need to be a perfectionist here. Aim for 90%, 95%. And like once you have an idea, go for it, right? Like I don't think at this point, like speed matters way more than perfection. So yeah, this is part of your job. You want to tell your story. You don't be too hung up on what is the exact copy that I need, what is the exact image that I need. I think it's just about going for it and keeping it consistent. And you want to be reading your posts on LinkedIn than other companies' posts, right? Just think about that. You want people to be reading your content and booking demos. Okay, and then yeah, I think a few things that I covered is, I think overall when I think about launches going forward, even for us, I think big launches are really good, like 1 to 2 big launches a year, but micro launches are ideal. So even if you've done a massive launch, you have to back it up with micro launches. So every 2, 3 weeks. And I think the best companies now, even in like Series A stage, are doing this. They're launching a new product, a case study, a rebrand. Everything can be made into a launch. And then in competitive spaces, if you are in a competitive space and visibility is really important, you need to make sure that you're being seen by your ICP. And this is worded wrongly, but you need to know where they are looking. Where are they, right? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Twitter? Are they on Reddit? Are they at conferences? Where should you be launching? And the last thing is, many of you are founders here, and I'm sure you're all busy. It is important to actually give some mental space for launch. Like launch should be something that you dedicate time to if you see the ROI for your business. So planning and putting that little bit of effort really makes a difference. And I think this was my last slide. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sneha. I know we have questions. There was 1 in 20 eggs.
And maybe one quick one that might be a little too specific as well.
Okay.
We're looking to announce a fundraise, change the name of the company, and a partnership. Should we do it all at once and try to get press around it, or do it as 3 little launches?
I would say do it as a big announcement. Is this going to be your first ever big announcement, or have you done?
We've done one other biggish announcement, but really didn't work at all.
Okay, then I would say I think what we did was kind of similar, like fundraise, rebrand, and all of that. I think it paid off. So you can combine all three, make sure you get press, plan around it, and then you can do a big launch, and then you can reuse that content for post-launch as well. So you can make it into a big launch and then break up that content as well.
Mhm.
But I think a big launch would be worth it because it probably would be your first really major launch, and it's combining that with press I think would help. And I'm not sure which space you're in. So I think that would also make a difference, but a big launch can really set up the stage for those micro launches.
Thank you.
I agree. And Ali would just say like what the micro launches might look like that follow might be like your a breakdown of your first meeting with an investor that was part of the raise, or a deep dive into the case, a customer study, or the partnership that you're doing. So you can think about how you might, again, lead with one launch that is like the full shebang and then break that up. Great question, though.
Big launch with the PR, all the other ones, LinkedIn, our own channels that piggyback off it and refer back to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Okay, Cyrus, you had a question. Do you want to ask it, or I'm happy to read it out. You sent it in the chat. We sort of spoke about this, but it was
I read I read out his
answer. Okay,
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cyrus. Shruti had a question. She said, I understand posting about features and product launches, but I'm curious why founders would want to share their fundraise. What are the benefits of doing this? And what should you share, not share about the round?
Yeah. I think in terms of a fundraise, it's one, as you mentioned, if it's a sizable raise, it's a good way to signal to your customers that you're well funded, you're going to be around for a long time. I've been on a lot of sales call. Enterprises ask, the first thing they ask is, this is all great, this product looks great, but do you have runway, right? So this is automatically like answering that question for any customers that you have, where it just legitimizes the company. And also from a hiring perspective, of course, like that adds a lot of confidence towards your company. So that's why people do share fundraising announcements. And what should you share or not share about the round? I think people typically share the size of the round, who are the lead investors, and any notable angel investors. So I think those would be the main things that you typically share. Yeah. You don't need to share anything else. And I don't think there's anything else to share anyway. So yeah.
Got it. Yeah, thanks. I think this sort of followed the question that Haley asked earlier on, hey, if you have a pre-seed round that you're raising, then, sometimes you might feel like, hey, that's all the money that I need right now, but is it big enough for me to actually go and make that huge announcement to somebody? And, is that actually beneficial, or will it end up hurting? But I think you answered that it depends on your customers as well.
Yeah, and I sort of feel like it's actually good to just launch, because everybody starts from somewhere, and you can use that as momentum to kind of, yeah, you can use that as good momentum, because if you never I think at every point you'll feel like, 4 million is too little, my competitor has raised 30 million. Like, I think at every stage that question is going to be there. I don't think you have too much to lose by launching, or maybe, as Anna shared, like sharing a story around the launch instead of the actual number, right? Like that could be a good option.
Yeah, there are so many different models. I love that honestly, LinkedIn is full of examples. And one example that comes to mind is Udia, the founder. I don't know if you guys were tracking, but he was sharing all of these posts in stealth and was like, just talking about the problem, really talking to his ICP. He was like, literally, the posts were so targeted and directed at them that if you weren't in the ICP, you probably didn't even notice. But the people who he was talking to were following and following, and he was in stealth. And then came the announcement of their massive Series A. And so he never announced a seed, not because it was small or for whatever reason. The choice was stealth, but still kind of, you can think of his post even as like micro launches on like giving little nuggets of what they were building along the way. And then boom, the massive announcement that, of course, went viral. So I think there are so many different models, and I love, Sneha, your ultimate kind of takeaway is just do it. Like, be out there, whether it's a micro launches around, new features, just getting into the practice of doing the launches and being vocal, creating a following, I think is the most critical piece. Any other questions? We have a list of questions that were submitted ahead of time when you guys registered, but we want to prioritize live questions. So any other burning questions for Sneha? Okay, I'll pull up our. I have a final question that I ask all of our guests, Neha. So I'm going to save that one for the very end. But maybe thinking through one. I love that you did a postmortem, even though you had like a super successful launch. You still, this is what makes me confident that you're gonna succeed and go the whole distance. Is like you're like there's still room to improve, and you have that like drive. When you say, giving more time to the post launch, I think that's a really good reflection, and so I wonder if you had not been super packed with like leads and demos immediately following the launch, looking back now, what might those follow-ups what could they have looked like, given what you know now in retrospect? I think that might just be helpful for people to hear your reflections.
Yeah, I think one big thing would be just backing that launch up with more posts, right? To just keep that momentum going, to keep like more leads coming into the funnel and really like building that momentum. The second thing is when you launch, like a lot of people will connect with you on LinkedIn, will comment on your post, and I didn't have enough bandwidth to like people were commenting saying like I would love to book a demo and things like that, and like all of that has like I've lost all of that. Like, but I think if we had more hands on deck, really making sure that every qualified customer that showed some interest was um was in our pipeline, basically. I think that would have been the second most thing that I would have, like emailing people that were smack in my ICP. If there's a director of engineering that sent me a LinkedIn connection request, actually following up with them and making it happen. Yeah, because not every customer is going to go to your post, go to your website, and then find a time that works for them and book a demo. Also, because as your calendar is getting booked out, there's not going to be enough slots. So the other thing is you might want to have a second calendar for your launch and know when to swap it out, or maybe there are tools that help distribute meeting. But what I realized was after the first day, like the next whole week was already fully booked. So we probably lost some potential interest for people who wanted to speak like the next day, right? They were like, oh, I have to book 2 weeks from now. That's too long. So that's also one thing that I felt like could have been improved. Yeah. But those are all good problems to have.
They're really good problems to have. Really good problems to have. I love it. Okay, the final question that we ask every guest to our Winning Wednesdays is about what keeps you motivated and maintaining a winning mindset in the face of a ton of struggles. Building is really hard, and you face all kinds of challenges, and if you're selling for the first time, you're realizing that, oh my gosh, there's a lot of rejection in selling effectively. And what keeps you motivated? What keeps you in a winning mindset in the face of all those things?
Yeah, I think I would like to tie it back to like sports, right? Like I think if you're in a match, you lose, you win or lose a game. I used to be the kind of athlete that would, the moment I lost, that would be I would take that very, very personally. I think the key here is just looking at wins and losses very objectively and learning from them. So that you're not like if you lose a deal, that doesn't mean that you've lost or your company has lost. It's just an opportunity to learn. And I think taking that objective position is always the best because there's so many ups and downs. Like Anna, like right before this, we were talking about a deal. So like I think there's always ups and downs, and you shouldn't tie your own like self-worth identity to the wins and losses. Look at it very objectively and like analyze it. It's opportunity, and losses are the best way to grow. In fact, it's great to win, but when you actually lose, it's such a good time to really reflect. And similar in sports, right? If you lose a match, you're gonna train 10 times harder for the next time you play the same person. Very similar. You lose a customer, maybe you work 10 times harder to win them back in the next 6 months. So I think like that's the mentality I'm trying to have.
Amazing. I think that's a winning mentality. So I'm so grateful, Sneha, to again get to work with you closely. It's a joy, and for all your insights that you shared today. Everybody, please help me give Sneha a round of applause. Thank you for your time, and thanks everyone for joining. I hope you feel a step closer to winning today, and look forward to seeing you on our next Winning Wednesday. Have a great day, everyone.